Hello again, my beautiful people of Earth. Welcome to episode 4 of Brain Cancer versus Graphic Novel. If you're new, I say this every time. This is a dark topic, sort of. I'm racing my mortality to get a graphic novel done, and I think it's going to take about 3 more years. And these things normally take you out in about a year or less, something, whatever. But if this is too dark for you, please don't watch. I've already made it too dark, but there's plenty of other cool stuff. Or have lunch or go talk to a friend or whatever. Okay, so next episode is on this topic is going to be an all cancer episode. So yay, that'll be really fun. I'll get into some gruesome details. I'll talk about what's going on, my treatment, what exactly this brain cancer thing is all about. Definitely skip that one if that doesn't sound good to you, because try to make it as fun as possible, but it'll mostly be gross photos and me telling tales. And in fact, I'm not going to do a reading from the operative report, but I'll mention it because it's amazing reading. It's so weird. It's like a detailed walkthrough of the surgery. The surgery. Okay, but today's episode, I'm very excited, is in response to some friends who are asking me. Sorry, no, it's in response to people buying my comic off eBay, which don't do. And to guarantee you won't, I'm actually going to do not a read through, but a quick kind of summary of the comics. I'm also, fair warning, going to do a reading from the novel, short, but I don't really enjoy listening to people read live, so like, I understand if you're like, I'm out. But I want to catch you up on what Leopold and Brink is all about and invite you to help me popularize it. So thanks again for joining me on the journey, and let's jump right into the story of Leopold and Brink. Okay, so I have this copy that I taped together. Never do this with comics, but it's all 3 issues and taped together. There's 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, so the story starts out with a woman noticing a snail in her greenhouse on a plant. She picks it up and tosses it outside. And then she goes back in and takes her gardening gloves off and goes through a back door, and you see you're in a lab now, and she's checking on the embryos that she's growing, which of course, one of which is Brink, which when you start reading this comic, you have no idea who this person is or who Brink is. So you're like, who is this and what is going on? And then it just goes straight to Leopold and Brink on an adventure, and Leopold is complaining about how lascivious Brink behaves, not towards him, but just in general, and he's kind of he's a nerd for sure, but he's young. So they wrestle just comically, and she gives him some shit about some things he's done that imply that he has gone through puberty, and don't be such a prude. And then she gets in their machine, and they go to their next destination. And again, you're like, who are these characters? What is going on? And so it pops back and forth between Brink's mom and their adventure. So now we're back with Brink's mom, and she and her lover and her lawyer at the same time are in DC, they're about to fly to DC. So that's just a page of that. And then we're back with Leopold and Brink, and they are in, interesting. They're in, this kind of location. And what that is, I think at this point I'll put Leopold and Brink on top of it. So the background you've seen in any of the videos is essentially the setting of the entire graphic novel, because the plot is me talking to someone walking through that environment, and you see what I'm talking about mostly, but occasionally I have to draw the cool Red Rock, southern Utah. This is Capitol Reef National Park. Treat it well, please, if you go. Okay, so Leopold and Brink are in this kind of area. They bump into a Native American and say something geologically nerdy. And you're like, okay, I guess they're like scientists, these two weirdos. And then Brink realizes that she's left her book at their last place. And Leopold's like, it's fine, forget it. We're not going back there. But of course she's like, we are. Back over to Brink's mom, and what are they talking about? I can't remember. They're angry about how the government is kind of limiting her research stuff. What she's doing is completely against the rules, so. And then we're back with Leopold and Brink, and they pop into the front of the Library of Congress when it was first built. So she runs in, she's just like, I'll be real quick, to go get the book. She appears like and at this stage, she's quite Zoftic, so she appears like this fully hairy, I'm going to say ape, because that's what the word everyone uses for this, but, bonobo. But a kind of, well, she's not really tall. Actually, she is pretty tall for a bonobo, but she does appear quite humanoid because of the way she presents and, her lifestyle. Anyway, she finds her book, says some quips to people that are staring at her, and then a security guard shows up with a gun, and she's like, how dare you use a gun in this place? Knocks him on his ass, takes the gun, and then outside, Leopold's starting to get surrounded by other security, police, and he's like, let's get out of here. And so she's coming, and they shoot her through the leg, and Leopold's all freaked out, but he's kind of, they put up like a force bubble thing around their machine so you can't get in or out. So he can't be shot, but he also can't get out for some reason. I don't know why I did that. And then the cops take Brink to the hospital. Okay, now we're back with Brink's mom, and they're actually now in the meeting with their government sponsor, probably a senator. I don't know what the hell. And they're saying we have to pull the plug on your project because it's against the rules. Also, you've got, like you said, we've heard that you have a national hero coming to live in your town, and we're like, what is that all about? I mean, I just dropped just endless like crumbs, and don't give much in this comic. So this is another reason don't buy it. Also, please let me buy them, because I threw away tens of thousands of copies of Leopold and Brink 1 because I only sold, a tiny portion of what I printed. That was a sad day in San Francisco, putting those in a recycling bin. But, I only have a few left, so I wouldn't mind snapping up all those things. Plus, once this becomes the next big thing, those are going to be worth it. Oh, shit. Now I'm just encouraging you to buy them. Whatever. I've got this. Okay, so she's having some funny conversation with the doctor that's helping her in the hospital. She's flirting with everybody, of course, because that's her thing. And then she fucks off and escapes to go check on Leopold, of course. As she's going, she bumps into a young Eleanor Roosevelt. Now, this is a side bar. I'm a huge fan of the Declaration of Human Rights, as you'd imagine, written by Eleanor Roosevelt. I live with who I call sister, but it's really my greatest friend ever, who saved my life a couple times. She's Japanese, was Japanese American, and her parents were fucking interned. And Joanne and I occasionally do knitting projects together that I design. She knits, and one of them is this. And her mother sees this once, and she's like, what the fuck are you doing with that in your house? And I don't have a good answer, other than, people make mistakes. It's super weird. Anyway, It's also kind of weird that I don't think I was that familiar with the Japanese internment when I did Leopold and Brink 1, but Brink is also a fan, so she says hi to young or Eleanor, and like, you inspired a lot of women and me and blah 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 blah. So then she gets back to the guards around Leopold and freaks them out, gets back inside the force shield bubbly thing, and then it's a nice little touching thing that Leopold does for her, and then they take off. Actually, I don't even show them taking off in this scene, but one final tier of panels is Catherine drinking wine, feeling like shit. Talking to the embryos, she delivers the line, "Well, kids, one of you has been granted the privilege of a federally encouraged abortion," which takes a whole new fucking meaning these days. And then I end it with an H.G. Wells quote. Quote, "They spent all their time in playing gently, in bathing in the river, in making love in a half-playful fashion, in eating fruit and sleeping. I could not see how things were kept going." And I'll talk about what that means to the theme of the story in another time, but it's a good one. Okay, so that's Leopold and Brink number 1. I don't really need to go through the comics in such detailed fashion, but I will just kind of quickly. Okay, so number 2, Catherine's still angry, understandably, and Brink is really like ramping up her next journey. Oh yeah, I'll just explain this because I mentioned the iMac thing in another video. She created when she was she grew up in Page, Arizona. I picked that for a particular reason, with her mother, and eventually her mother starts dating a woman named Taer, Taer, and she also has a thing going with AJ, her eventual lawyer. Brink has not the best relationship with Taer, but well, actually, there's the story. Taer takes, Taer is encouraged to bond with Brink because she's got a real gruff personality, and Catherine's like, "This is, my baby. You have to be cool. And if we're going to be together, you got to find a way to have a relationship with her." So one day she takes her to, I don't know if you've ever heard of Arco Santi, but it's, talk about another problematic hero of mine. Is an Italian architect who studied with, what's his falling water guy, Frank Lloyd Wright. And he really kind of took that idea of building in sync with nature just as far as you can go, and he created this thing called arcology, where you design a city, thinking of the environment, of the resources, of ecology, really thinking 3D. You don't just put fucking grids on top of the earth. So I was really into him when I was young, very influential. I met him once. Oh, right, I met him at the Earth Summit in 1992. Is that when I first met him? I think so. Anyway, I had a little moment and hit it off, and then I wanted to put him in my comic, so I asked him if he would be cool with that, and he said yeah. So like, he's a fucking character in Leopold and Brink, the comic. Anyway, why did I bring that up? Oh, right. Because he built this prototype of this city concept that he has in outside of Scottsdale, Arizona. And it's, he died before he got anywhere close to finishing it. And it's, I derisively and with tongue in cheek and love, called an arty youth hostel. But it does host a lot of really cool plays and art stuff. And so anyway, Taer goes to see a performance of Lysistrata there and takes Brink, thinking, oh, this will be a cool bonding thing. But Brink, who has likes fart jokes and stuff, finds this play, she loves it, but it's hilarious and ridiculous, and she actually runs up on stage and tries to join in. And the actors are kind of cool there, but it just ruined the play for Taer. And she's angry, and she kind of, afterwards scolds her. They really had to kind of bust up. And then their relationship gets worse because Brink's mom develops, ironically, cancer from having Brink, and dies way too young. And then Brink is taken care of by Taer for a long time. And when she gets to be 15, she's like, not that I ever needed to go to fucking school, but I'm out of here. And so she had written, I think I mentioned this too in the other video, she had written many of the public scholars around the world, or public intellectuals and big scholars around the world to visit. Anyway, so she takes off at 15. And, oh, sorry, she takes off, wait. I forgot. The biggest thing in Leopold and Brink is what Brink writes when she's 7. When she's 7, she writes something she calls the TWF Manifesto. Sorry, Feminesto. And TWF stands for Tidal Wave Feminism. And she invents this movement that essentially says, I've fucking had it. The way you treat the earth, it's over. Let's change this. And it's, you know, she is a super genius, so it's not surprising how well it's written. But Tare reads this because it's just on her bed, but she's snooping around. And Brink comes in like, what the fuck are you doing? And Tare's so moved by it and so inspired that she's like, please let me do something with this. Let's get this let's get this out there. And Brink's like, wow, we've never really, I mean, okay, or whatever. She just really takes to it. So, I mean, I think maybe, or she says, fuck you. I don't know, remember, but because the reason they kind of break up, because Tare kind of monetizes it immediately. And she brings a dude over who has like a leather jacket with the TWF symbol on it and brings like, eat shit, I'm out of here. And so she goes to live with Rav. Oh, Ravindra is his name, not AJ. Ravindra, who lives up north in Arizona. And, she always kind of saw him as her dad, and she helps him get a girlfriend. She's just in love with him. But then he does okay, I'm good, I'm out of here, and travels the world, and then ends up in my dreams at Carnegie Mellon University. And at Carnegie Mellon, years before that, as a kid, alongside the Feminesto, she invents what I call the iMac. And her idea with the iMac was, I'm gonna create essentially a virtual reality machine that can project a perfect recreation of the past that you can interact with. Like a Star Trek holodeck kind of thing, but reality. Like you can't make up anything. And I don't know how I justified thinking this kind of makes sense, but like, I have all these ridiculous, I mean, the ideas are as ridiculous as my design of Leopold, which I think, diamagnetic levitation explains how he can fly and stuff. And, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but it's a comic book, so I guess it's science fiction too, for sure. But also, the idea of Brink existing is lunacy as well, but she exists, and I love her. Okay, so, beep, boop, boop. So she invents that machine, and the goal of the machine is, I'm going to use the study. Oh my goodness! The other big theme, which is really the origin of this machine, is Brink's mom was obsessed with not just her proving consciousness was a biological phenomenon, but the idea that what she called the empirical meta-narrative. And if anybody's, especially these days, that meta-narratives is such a POMO term and a problematic term, I understand. But I do have a pretty good, strong faith in the idea that things happen, they actually happen, and they happen in a particular order. So if you want to study history, and it's very difficult to get through the reinterpretations and the Victor, gets to tell the story bullshit, let alone getting at the information. But she wanted everybody in the world to have a decent grasp on at least the story of history, of life on Earth, which it's a very doable thing, and that that would lead to us kind of getting each other more. I don't know why I gave her that passion, but Brink definitely picked it up, and she's like, I'm going to enable this dream of yours by inventing a machine that lets us see the story clearly. And Brink realized, like, I think we really need to see the development of hominids more clearly, so that to help with that story, let alone we need to see the development of chimpanzees contra bonobos because it informs so much about us. Okay, oh good Lord, it's 20 minutes. I'm going to now do a quick reading from Leopold and Brink number 4, which is a novel I called The New Angels. And I got a million more things to say about fucking what the story of Leopold and Brink is about. Oh, but okay, the machine, right. So Brink uses the machine to study the past to help redesign cities in a green and sustainable way. And so the more she understands like what people need, what resources are there, how it relates to the biotic system in general. And in the story, I hadn't even got close to that in the comic yet, but in the novel for sure, Los Angeles gets fucked up. It gets razed by multiple earthquakes that then lead to disastrous fires. I hate how realistic that scenario is, but I make it happen. And Brink then steps in and is able, and it kind of gets the credit for recreating Los Angeles as a sustainable, green, not utopia, but just an excellent place. And then that makes cities all over the world seek out her counsel to help redesign their cities. And so, you know, I always imagine like if there was a Leopold and Brink video game, it would essentially be solar punk SimCity. I love SimCity, but like I've always been very frustrated that I got to use conventional bullshit to build everything. Okay, so that's it, man. That's the big thing of Leopold and Brink is and I said this to my sister. I'll explain when we were talking about how similar the Indiana Jones movie was to the first novel. I said, yeah, like Brink is like the urban planner version of Indiana Jones. And she's like, ugh, that's so boring. That's like the actuarial version of the Terminator. And I'm like, yeah, but he's still the Terminator, so he does Terminator things. And, you know, we have fun. Okay, so let's do that quick reading, and you guys can save up your energy for next episode, the gruesome stuff. And here we go. I've got my screen in front of me. This first chapter is called Snips of Snails, which is a mix-up of a line that might sound familiar. The baby climbed down the mesquite tree with a carefully chosen footful of thorny branches. She stacked them neatly beside the A-frame house she was building. A large snail arrived on the hard book cover she used for the foundation. She'd never seen a snail before. She loved how it moved its antennae in crazed, independent twists, but could tell it still looked at her. She tried to coax the snail onto her finger and giggled when it retreated into its shell. She tickled its foot, which still peeked out, gripping. She was thrilled by the sticky, sandy softness of it. She gently tapped the shell, a quiet knock, then followed the spiral with her finger. She leaned in close to smell it. This drew the attention of her mother, who was moving about the yard from one chore to another. Samil came over, thinking her toddler had put something inappropriate in her mouth. The girl got very excited, reached out to grab her mother's pant leg firmly, smiled and pointed at her new friend. Her mother crouched down, looked it over, smiled at them both, and picked up the snail. She lifted her daughter into her other arm and danced the snail through the air as if it were a magical jewel. The girl squealed with joy. They moved through the house to the kitchen, all the while the mother sing-songingly explaining to her daughter how simple it was to learn from a snail. She sat her joyful girl down with a swift smack on the granite countertop, she cracked the snail's shell and began peeling it away from its body. The girl went still. Her throat seized, her pulse slowed. Everything went bright and hot. Her mother spoke excitedly about the beauty of the electric simplicity of life as she cut into the creature and pinned its squirming body to a wooden cutting board. The girl felt every subtle poke and caress as her mother dragged aside the heart, kidneys, lungs, and other unrelated organs to expose the ganglia in its animated head, its tentacles still looking at the girl, groping for meaning. That's it. That's chapter 1. So it's short, and in the novel, like the comic, it bounces between the origin of Brink and Leopold, like in real time, what chronologically, to the adventure they're on, which picks up when the comic left off and shit. I forgot to mention the adventure they were headed towards. Oh, I did. It's the, you know. Oh, right. That's the story of the novel, which is after fucking up the performance of Lysistrata and then eventually kind of making up with her stepmom, she decides, I'm going to take you to see the original performance of Lysistrata. And that's kind of the plot, and hijinks ensue around it. Let me know if you want to hear from that novel. I'm happy to read some of it, though I would like it to be released still. Okay, well, I mean, like, this includes that. This novel, Leopold and Brink 4. All right, thank you for joining me again. I hope that was interesting, and it will definitely be interesting next time, but again, it will be dark. See you next time. Later. Planet Earth is blue, and there's nothing I can do.
Copyright infringement.
Jang, jing, jang, wonk, wonk.
Flagged.
Shut it.